Hello, I'm Deborah Sword.
Hi, I'm Tyson Bankert.
Tyson, you may not know this about me, but I had a very conflictual childhood.
Mm.
And my home was a battlefield, and that is not my world now. So I changed as an adult. I was in my late 20s, early 30s when I got into conflict management,
Mhm.
and it has really improved the quality of my life and the quality of my relationships. But I was able to make that change.
Mm.
And this is what we're encouraging now with talking about conflict analysis and conflict competencies. But I just want to have a brief moment about where does it originate, this idea of what conflict is, whether to be afraid of it, whether to compete, whether to go in for the kill, how to respond. Mine came from childhood, from my experience in my family of origin. The comic books I read
Mm.
were good versus bad, evil versus
Mm.
heroic villains. That binary, it was not very nuanced and not very sophisticated. It was either or.
Mhm.
It was hard work to change that.
Yeah, I think it's so important to reflect on how we come to understanding our conflict or how we are raised to address conflict. Because I know for myself, it was very much this difference of one, well, for ignoring conflicts that arose, and then also I think that everyone has good intentions. Like everything is good, and so as soon as you bring conflict, you're then seen as sort of the villain or the bad person. And I think sometimes that was really constructed by certain big experiences growing up in familial patterns, but also I think religion in different ways of which kind of constructed the conditions to create the kind of how I how I was supposed to address conflict.
So, how did you change to the conflict competent person you are now?
I think always to keep trying and to be embodied, to feel good about what it feels good, to be able to understand what the other person is maybe needing, and opening more dialogue. More dialogue, the better it feels. It has felt more successful than avoiding.
So, there were four kinds of awarenesses that I identify with conflict competence. And I had to work on each of these,
Mhm.
but it's so improved my life. It's really worth it. The first was self awareness.
Mm.
I can differentiate self awareness from self absorption, self centeredness.
Mm.
That was a big shift. So to be self aware for me was to think about how I think, what my mindset is, whether it's fixed or open, and my conflict style. I was very competitive and now I'm collaborative. So to know myself, uh, to know, and you're very good with boundaries. I wasn't. I had to learn
Mhm.
that.
Mhm. Yeah, for me, self-awareness would be like one thing that I've been able to help to understand with me self-awareness is how I'm feeling in that day. Like, have I eaten? Have I slept? Have I, be just knowing how I'm moving through the day is really important for me to be able to know, can I even handle certain things that come up that maybe regularly I would be if I was in the right state of mind. So that's been really important for me.
And that leads to the second awareness, which is context
Right.
awareness. Um, we operate in systems
Hmm.
and different contexts. So we can sometimes show up differently at family dinners than we do at a work event
Hmm.
or in our volunteer lives or when we're dealing with the vulnerable, if we're feeling very confident. So just to be aware of where we are and who the other person is and their context as well.
It comes back to that idea of like how are things designed, right? And some things are designed to be more difficult for different types of people, and sometimes that is a clash between people, and rather than the actual setup or the system that you're engaging with. And so I always think of oftentimes traffic, where we're stuck in, we actually live right where we're very close to a road that to me causes lots of traffic, and people get upset and annoyed, but really it's the way that the road's
Yeah.
designed that create this kind of conflict. And of course, it comes back to that self-awareness of how do you manage, how do you emotionally regulate?
Yeah. And as Jack Layton said, it's not about the world of design, it's about the design of the
Mm.
world. And another piece of that is the nature of the relationship. If we're just neighbors who say hello in passing, or if we're neighbors who chat for an hour over the fence.
Hmm.
So the third awareness is emotional, sometimes called emotional intelligence, but emotional awareness is, to me, not just being aware of my own
Yeah,
emotions, but also what the other person, what emotional state were they in before?
yeah.
That's a little bit of context. How are they now in the conflict? And what would you each like to be your emotional state going forward?
I think there's from that emotional awareness piece is it's just as important to be able to understand the empathy from someone else and what they're feeling and being open and encouraging to understand. Yeah, also even what are your ideas and patterns of conflict, right?
And the fourth is perspective awareness. And you and I talk about perspective taking a lot. If you're in a conflict, knowing your perspective, there's a tendency to just argue it and insist you're right.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take the other person's perspective into account, whatever they're arguing for makes sense to them at the time.
Mm-hmm. 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 In I think all the first three, emotional contact, self-awareness, can help you take in that perspective,
Yeah.
understand it.
So those are four perspectives and awarenesses that increase your conflict competency.
Great. Well, come back next week for another conflict owner's manual episode, and we will hope to see you there.
Thank you so much. And please subscribe, like it, share it. Leave a comment. We love to hear from you. Thank you.